Christmas morning, 1861. Snow had not yet touched Georgia's soil, but the cold had arrived anyway. A cold that crept through walls, through prayers, through the bones of the living. In the parlor of the Hawthorne estate, a cedar tree stood decorated with glass ornaments imported from Europe. Candles flickered like watching eyes. The war had begun months earlier, yet here, behind plantation gates, tradition still pretended it was untouched. Then the door opened. Two men entered, boots wet with red clay. Between them stood a boy. He could not have been more than 12. His wrists were bound, not tightly, but deliberately. His clothes were clean, newly pressed, chosen with care. He had been washed, federal prepared, like an offering. The mistress of the house, Eleanor Hawthorne, rose slowly from her chair. Her husband spoke first. "A Christmas gift," he said calmly. Strong, quiet, obedient, came from a closed estate upriver. The boy lifted his eyes, and Eleanor Hawthorne forgot how to breathe, because the boy's face was her face. The same narrow chin, the same gray-green eyes, even the faint crescent scar beneath the left brow, a mark she herself carried, hidden beneath powder and years. For a moment, no one spoke. The candles trembled. Eleanor felt something ancient stir inside her chest. Not love, not relief, but terror. Because she knew. She had always known this day would come. And now, standing beneath her Christmas tree, was the child she had buried without a grave. The child the church told her never existed. The child she had named once, and then erased. The boy did not cry. He did not plead. He only stared at her with the quiet confusion of someone who had finally arrived somewhere familiar, but could not remember why. Outside, the bells of the local church rang for morning service. Inside, Eleanor Hawthorne understood one unbearable truth. The past had learned how to walk. 25 years earlier, Eleanor Hawthorne had been a girl with soft hands and a sharper mind than anyone suspected. She had grown up under sermons that praised obedience and warned against desire. The church taught that women were vessels, not of thought, but of consequence. When Eleanor was 17, the plantation's new overseer arrived. His name has been lost to history, as many names were, but his presence remained. He spoke little. He listened closely. What followed was not romance, nor violence in the way stories prefer. It was something worse. Inevitability. When Eleanor realized she was with child, the world closed in around her like a coffin. Her mother wept. Her father prayed. The pastor did neither. Instead, arrangements were made. The child would be born quietly. The child would be given away. The child would never be spoken of again. The woman who delivered the baby, an enslaved midwife, saw the truth immediately. The child had Eleanor's eyes. The midwife said nothing. Silence was survival. The infant was taken before Eleanor could hold him longer than a single breath. The church recorded no birth. The plantation recorded no loss. Eleanor was married within the year, and for decades, she lived exactly as expected. She hosted luncheons. She attended services. She gave alms. But at night, she dreamed of a boy knocking at a locked door. Not screaming, not crying. Just waiting. Waiting for her to remember. Now, on Christmas morning, 1861, the waiting was over. The Hawthorne estate had always been wrong. Built on land once used as a burial ground. Though never acknowledged, the house groaned at night, like something alive but restrained. Servants whispered that footsteps moved where no one walked. That mirrors remembered faces. Eleanor had ignored such stories. Until the boy arrived. From the first night, the house responded to him. Floorboards creaked when he passed. Dogs refused to bark at him. And the old clock in the hall, broken for years, began ticking again. The boy was given a name, Isaac. A biblical name. A sacrificial name. He was assigned light duties, kept close to the house under Eleanor's supervision. Her husband noticed nothing unusual. Men like him rarely did. But Eleanor watched everything. The way Isaac paused before the locked east wing. The wing where Eleanor had given birth. The way he hummed a melody Eleanor remembered singing once, long ago, to no one. Worst of all was the resemblance growing stronger with each passing day. As if time itself were correcting a mistake. Eleanor prayed harder than she ever had before. Not for forgiveness. For control. Because if the truth emerged, if the church learned what stood beneath her roof, Isaac would not survive it. And neither would she. On the first Sunday after Christmas, Eleanor took Isaac to church. She told herself it was necessary. Exposure would normalize him. But the moment they entered, silence fell. The pastor's eyes lingered on the boy too long. Churches, after all, kept records. Births, deaths, confessions whispered behind closed doors. And some records were not meant to stay buried forever. As the congregation sang, Isaac turned to Eleanor and whispered, "Ma'am, why does this place feel like it knows me?" Eleanor felt her blood turn to ice. Because beneath the pulpit, sealed behind stone and scripture, were ledgers older than the war. Ledgers that did not forget. Ledgers that remembered children taken, renamed, reassigned. Ledgers that might still contain one impossible entry. And somewhere within that church, something had begun to recognize Isaac Hawthorne. Not as property, not as a gift, but as proof. The Church of St. Bartholomew had survived fires, floods, and revivals that split families in half. Its walls were thick, its windows narrow, its memory long. Eleanor did not know, could not know, that beneath the pulpit floor lay a stone chamber sealed in 1819, after a scandal so severe it threatened the church's authority across 3 counties. Inside that chamber were ledgers. Not spiritual ones, practical ones. They listed births that were never baptized, infants delivered quietly, children transferred between plantations, orphanages, and parishes like excess inventory. Each entry bore a symbol instead of a name when the truth was dangerous. Isaac sat perfectly still during the sermon, eyes fixed on the pulpit as if listening to something beneath the pastor's voice. When the final hymn ended, the pastor descended the steps slowly. He placed his hand on Isaac's shoulder. "You're new," he said. "Where did you come from, boy?" Isaac hesitated. "From before," he replied. The pastor smiled, but his hand tightened. That night, the pastor unlocked the chamber for the first time in 20 years. And he found a symbol he had prayed never to see again. Isaac began waking in the night. Not screaming, whispering. Names Eleanor had never spoken aloud. The midwife. The East Wing. A hymn sung only once, before dawn, 25 years ago. Eleanor listened from behind her door, heart hammering, as Isaac murmured words no child could invent. "I was cold," he whispered one night. "I remember the cold." Eleanor pressed her palms to her mouth to keep from crying out. Because she remembered it too. The church bells. The iron bed. The child taken before he could cry. Memory, she realized, was not taught. It was inherited. And Isaac was remembering what the world had tried to erase. Word reached Eleanor that a letter had arrived from the orphanage upriver, the same institution that had closed decades earlier. It was not addressed to her. It was addressed to the church. The letter spoke of missing records, of children reassigned improperly, of one boy whose file never aligned. Birth date unknown, origin deliberately obscured. The letter asked a simple question. Does the Hawthorne estate still possess the child marked with the crescent symbol? Eleanor burned the letter in her hearth. But ash has a way of traveling. And by morning, riders were already on the road. The East Wing door opened on its own for the first time in years. Isaac stood inside, staring at the old birthing room. "This is where you cried," he said gently, not looking at Eleanor. Eleanor fell to her knees. The house groaned above them, not in anger, but release. Because houses remember. And the Hawthorne estate had waited decades to speak. They arrived just after dawn. 3 men on horseback, coats buttoned high, faces already decided. They carried no weapons openly, yet everything about them suggested authority that did not require steel. Church authority. The pastor dismounted first. Behind him came the county registrar and a deacon whose name appeared often in ledgers but rarely in sermons. Eleanor watched from the upstairs window as they approached the house. Isaac stood beside her. "They've come to take me," he said calmly. "No," Eleanor replied too quickly. "They've come to ask questions." Isaac tilted his head. Questions are how they make things disappear. The men were ushered into the parlor. Polite words were exchanged. Tea was served. Then the registrar opened his satchel. He placed a ledger on the table. "Old, heavy, familiar. We are here regarding a discrepancy," he said. "A child without a lawful origin." Eleanor's hands trembled. Isaac stepped forward. "I know my origin," he said. "You buried it." Silence fell like a verdict. The registrar turned the pages slowly. Each page bore symbols instead of names. Crescent marks. Crossed lines. Ink faded by design. Then he stopped. One entry remained unusually clear. Male child. Born winter, 1836. Mother, unrecorded. Transferred by ecclesiastical order. Isaac leaned closer. That's me, he said. The pastor closed the ledger. This child was placed under the protection of the church, he said, to prevent scandal. Eleanor stood. He was placed to protect you, she said, from the truth you couldn't bear. The deacon shifted uneasily. The church had not hidden Isaac out of mercy. It had hidden him to preserve its image. And now the image was cracking. Cannon fire echoed faintly in the distance. The war was coming closer. Men were leaving. Records were being lost. Authority was slipping. The pastor realized this too. Given the instability, he said, it may be best to relocate the boy. For his own safety. Isaac smiled faintly. You mean erase me again? The pastor did not deny it. Eleanor felt something break inside her. Not loudly, but completely. I will not give him to you, she said. The men exchanged glances. This was no longer a negotiation. That night, Isaac told Eleanor the rest. How he had been moved between homes. How women whispered apologies they could not explain. How every place felt temporary. And always, he said, they told me not to ask who I belonged to. Eleanor took his hands. You belong to me, she whispered. Isaac looked at her, not as a child, but as something older. I belonged to you once, he said, before you let them take me. The words were not cruel. They were true. And truth, once spoken, cannot be returned. By morning, everyone knew. Not the details, just the shape of the sin. Doors closed when Eleanor passed. Conversations ended mid-sentence. The market fell silent in her presence, as if sound itself feared implication. The town had always known how to survive. It survived by not asking. At the church, the bells rang, but no one came. Inside, the pastor met with elders whose faces had aged prematurely from decades of controlled forgetting. The boy cannot remain, one said. If he speaks, we all fall, said another. They did not discuss Isaac as a person. They discussed him as an outcome. And outcomes, when inconvenient, were managed. That afternoon, the pastor returned alone. He brought papers. They will declare him deceased, he said. Lost to war, disease, misfortune. Choose the word you prefer. He will be taken north. Educated. Silent. Eleanor read the papers. They were thorough. They always were. And me? She asked. You will be forgiven, the pastor replied. Publicly. Completely. Eleanor looked at Isaac. He shook his head. I won't disappear again, he said. The pastor's eyes hardened. Then neither will the consequences. That night, fire broke out in the east wing. No one saw who lit it. But the flames moved carefully as if guided, consuming only the room where Isaac had been born. The town watched from a distance. No one helped. Eleanor stood barefoot in the yard, smoke in her lungs, knowing the message had been delivered. Erase the evidence. Isaac watched the flames. They're afraid, he said. Yes, Eleanor whispered. And fear makes people righteous. Before dawn, Isaac packed what little he owned. I won't let them decide what I am, he said. Eleanor embraced him. For the first time, openly. You are my son, she said. No matter what they write. Isaac nodded. I know. He left before sunrise, walking toward the river road, toward uncertainty, toward ownership of his own name. The house fell silent. Not empty. Freed. Weeks after Isaac vanished into the winter roads, the church sealed the ledger chamber once more. But before the stone was set, the registrar added one final entry. Not a symbol. A sentence. The child was not lost. He was released. It was the only time such language appeared in the records. The registrar's hand shook as he wrote it. Not from fear of punishment, but from the realization that something irreversible had already occurred. Truth had escaped. And truth, once free, does not return quietly. Eleanor Hawthorne lived out the war alone. Her husband never returned. The estate fell into disrepair, slowly, honestly. She sold parcels of land, dismissed servants with wages and references the town resented her for providing. She attended church once more. She sat in the back. No one spoke to her. But no one stopped her either. Some reckonings do not arrive as punishment. They arrive as isolation. Eleanor accepted it, because she had finally chosen memory over comfort. Years later, travelers spoke of a school established upriver, quiet, self-funded, unofficial. Its founder was a man with gray-green eyes and a faint crescent scar beneath his brow. He taught children to read their names aloud before learning scripture. He kept no records, only stories. And when asked where he came from, he answered simply, From a place that forgot me. Official histories make no mention of Isaac Hawthorne. Church records list him as resolved. The town remembers nothing. But houses remember. Land remembers. And sometimes, when ledgers fail and bells fall silent, the truth survives not as a fact, but as a warning. That forgetting is a choice. And some gifts are not meant to be owned. They are meant to return.